Welcome to today's podcast. We are here on January 16th, and the title of today's devotion is called Be a Boomerang Friend. I know it sounds kind of funny, but I wanted to bring a very special person on this podcast. So you are invited to join in on this conversation. I've got Jaclyn Whitt with me here, and we are getting ready to start talking about First Chronicles 11 through 14. Now, that's the morning rinse. So if you want to pause this and go ahead and read those chapters in the audio version, or if you want to do it in your printed Bible, go ahead and do that, and then come back and we're going to talk about today's podcast. So the featured verse today is First Chronicles 14:1, and that says, "Now Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David with cedar trees, mason, and carpenters to build a house for him." So just so you know, we're in First Chronicles, and we've had all kinds of genealogy that we've read through, and now David has just been anointed king. So we are going to go through the Chronicles and learn about David as a king. And the reason why I brought in Jaclyn here is because there was something really special that happened in my life that kind of relates to this story. And Jaclyn was kind of key in that. But basically, this featured verse talks about how that Hiram helped David because David was going to build a home. And Hiram was a ruler over a nation, and this nation worshipped a lot of idols, and it was a different type of spiritual belief than what David was. But he was a friend to both King David and his son Solomon. And why I bring that up is because Hiram helped David carry out a very large task at hand, or several, including he provided resources for the construction of David's house. And then he provided resources to Solomon when Solomon built the temple later on. And so I bring in Jaclyn because Jaclyn was pivotal, and it's so cool that you, Jaclyn, are a part of my podcast and my very first guest. So welcome.
Thank
And
you.
I wanted to explain, as everyone knows, I have this book, Rinse, Reflect, Repeat, and Jaclyn was pivotal in helping me get here today, and you guys listening to that because of what Jaclyn does. We were sitting at a table, right?
Mhm.
Do you want to share that
Sure.
side of your story with that?
Yeah. Okay, so first, I had kind of met you in passing. You had been in one of my table reads, and we'd kind of, got to have little chats here and there, but we never really had like a deep conversation. But here we were at Content Film Festival, and we're just sitting having lunch, group of ladies around a table, and you're kind of talking about some things that you were struggling with, like where do I go? How do I manage this? How do I balance these things out in my careers? And I had already been studying some business and marketing and things like that where and God he made me creative. It's hard for me to think the way that like the typical people think, and so my brain is always like so many ideas at once, and then let's talk about that. So I loved that you had your hand in so many different things because that shows that God has skilled you and really blessed you in different areas. And even with that, like they all come together because they're all part of you. And that was kind of where you were wondering, how do I balance all of this together? And I was like, "I've got ideas." So so yeah, we talked about, some different ideas and, I bounced some off of you and some of them stuck, and so I'm really glad. I'm so proud of you for doing this podcast and, being able to make use of what God has already given you. He had already given you the book. He'd already given you the heart, the content, and so to bring that into a podcast for me, I thought, well, this makes sense. And so I'm glad that, you saw that too.
Well, and what's interesting is because there were things at that table that you were spouting out and all these ideas, and I don't even remember all of them, but
Yeah.
I just remember a few. And there's this saying that says when the student is ready, he hears, or
I
something
think
of
the
that
teacher will
nature.
come, something like that.
Yeah, the teacher will come. Yeah, when the student is ready, the teacher will come. Yeah. And I felt like in that moment, the teacher came.
Aw.
And I was ready to grow. And I think that one of the really cool things about what this podcast and how it relates to my book is that I really have tried to make my book a 365-day action driven devotional, walking people through the Bible alphabetically. And what's so cool is that I can bring in this story to show people how we can implement our lives just like people did in the Bible time, and
Mhm.
how that likened to this, and why I felt like you would be so great to be a guest speaker on this day is because Hiram provided David with resources. He provided him with tangible things. He helped David bring about a vision and bring it to fruition. And I think that that is something that we as Christ followers can help others do, no matter where they're at, whether it's a luncheon or speaking engagement or whatever. I think it's so cool that we can use a biblical example for something that we can do in today's world, in our modern day world. And you helped me kind of just like Hiram helped David. And I know that Hiram was of a different belief system and a faith and stuff. And so my also my point in all of this is that we don't have to actually be of the same faith or even the same mindset. There's resources that can come from all different kinds of people, like all different walks of life,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. God can use anyone.
Yeah, he can, absolutely, and he does. And yesterday's devotional was, I challenged people to write down something that was in their heart that they wanted to complete, like a big task, a big vision, something that they wanted to complete. And then I asked them to write down 4 small tasks to help them get started. And I think that that's probably one of the things that you are gifted with, is naturally when you're talking about marketing, because I hear out in the field how you are so great at marketing and with ideas and what have you. And so yesterday I had challenged people to go ahead and write down the thing that they're wanting to do, and then 4 small tasks to help them to get started. And that challenge of looking in their group of friends or those who they're associated with, because sometimes God will put people in our lives to help us complete that God-given desire and challenge. And it could be right in front of you, which is what happened
Mhm.
to me on that day in that lunchroom. I was not expecting it at
You
all.
thought you were just going to a film festival. Maybe you'll sell some books.
Yeah, that's really pretty much what it was. But when we look at God's eyes and we look at the connections that he has put us in, and we look around us, then our resources could very well be right in front of us. And that's what happened with you. And so I was just so excited. I mean, I had my notebook and writing things down and writing names down, and and so I wanted to also talk about kind of what exactly do you do, that if somebody is listening here that might need something of your services, what is, can you describe, like, what is it all
Yeah,
about
yeah.
you today?
Okay, just to back up quickly, when you were saying, that some of this marketing stuff comes naturally to me, I think one of the things that comes naturally to me is being a problem solver. And so I want to encourage people, if you already are a problem solver, then that will be a gift for you to share with other people as long as they are wanting it. Do not solve problems for people that do not want you to solve their problems. Or if you are not naturally gifted that way, find someone who is, because and then just be prepared for a lot of ideas. Like, we said, I gave Anita a ton of ideas that day. Not all of them is what she wanted to do. And so she chose the ones that were a good fit for her and she ran with that. So I am a screenwriter. That is like my main thing that I do, but also I am the co-director of Faith and Family Filmmakers. So what I do, I help people to set their goals in the industry, similar to what I did with you, help to figure out, okay, where do you want to go? What resources do you have? What resources do you need? Who do you need to meet in order to get things moving forward. Because one of the other things that we did that day was I realized, okay, so the type of marketing you want to do for your book, I know who does that and I can connect you. So I didn't necessarily solve all the problems that day. All I did was really see where there were opportunities and connections, and how to get from where you are to where that goal would be, and figuring out how to solve those obstacles along the way. And so yeah, I help people do that in the midst of writing movies.
Well, it's almost like you have an arm that is like one a connector because you connect people, but there's that saying is it's not about who you know, but who knows you. And there's a lot
Yeah.
of people who know you in our industry, and I think that that's really cool because you're a trusted advisor, and that would be like another arm is you are an advisor, a consultant, a problem solver, a creative, not just in the world of screenwriting, but my experience with you is that you help people look at what they're needing to do and the problem and make it feel like they can conquer it almost. Because
Yeah.
I love that table going, oh my goodness, I'm so overwhelmed and I don't know where to begin, but I can be doing so much more. And that's kind of how I felt after I talked to you. Like I can be doing so much more, and there's all kinds of opportunities for me to do more. I love that song called Made for More. It's like we're all made for more, and we sometimes just need somebody to help give you kind of a kick in the rear or a reach down with a hand and pull you up the ladder to the next step or just something. And that's what Hiram did for David, and that's when you were one of the people that did that for me. And I'm sure that there are people that are listening to this will go, okay, how can I get Jaclyn to help me?
Yeah.
Like, how can I get her to get, you know what I'm saying? And so so you help people write screenplays. You
Yes.
are a writer of a screenplay. I mean, and you're award winning at that. Award winning at that. Let's just say multiple award winning
Yes. Yes.
screenplays
Yeah.
that you've done. And you also when we're talking just specifically about screenwriting, you can actually be hired to, what would you say, screenplay consultant or
Yeah,
what?
to give some feedback. There's a few different ways of getting feedback on a script, but definitely, I mean, if people are in the film industry and listening to this, if you are going to go into production, before you do that, you definitely want to make sure that your script is solid, because you can't necessarily change it after the fact, right? You can't fix the script in post. It's not easy. So I help people to make sure that their project is ready to go into production, as far as like the script being ready. And I actually am also running a mentorship program with Alexandra Boylan. She's a very successful independent producer. And so she and I run a program where we help people to produce their own movies, so aspiring film producers. And I also am I'm a co director for Faith and Family Filmmakers Association, where we are actually rolling out a ton of new things in 2025 that are going to provide a lot of opportunities for marketing, networking, and education for all of the members there. So, yes, I live in the film industry world, which is one of those worlds where it's like, there's never any one answer, and you have to get creative just with how you do the business, let alone how you create the project.
So you pretty much have different arms, whether that's screenwriting, producing, mentorship, marketing. You're kind of like a one-stop shop almost.
Well, because it's not that I do it all, it's that I know the people who do it well. And so sometimes I might be the one that's like, oh, yeah, I'm the right person for this job. Otherwise, I might be the person that's listening and being like, I know who you need. And
Mhm.
then I can help get them connected.
Which is what you did for me with the book and relaunching it basically. Yeah, and she's been great. So yeah, if you guys need anything at all, how do people get a hold of you? What's the best way for people, like if they wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to direct people to faffassociation.com. That's FAFF for Faith and Family Filmmakers Association.com. You can see all of the things that we offer there, the different education and programs and all of that. If they're in the film industry, if they're not in the film industry and they just want to, follow me because I'm also a writer and I've got books, you can go to jaclynwhitt.com.
So how many books do you have?
Okay, this is crazy. I just realized like a few days ago, I was like, hey, I published 3 books this year. It was crazy.
3?
I didn't even realize it until like the end of
What?
2024. I realized I published 3 books. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Were those your first 3?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah,
knew that.
well, okay, so one of them or two of them is the same book but in 2 languages. So, but it still took the same kind of like research of like, okay, so how am I going to translate this? And then, going through the same process of publishing and all of that. So, yeah.
Wow. I did not know that. 3 books. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you have the books at content?
Okay, so they were supposed to arrive before the end of the
Oh,
festival,
that's
but they arrived the day after it ended. And so no, they were not there. But I
okay.
will for sure because I had actually literally just published them. And so when I ordered the author copies, they just didn't arrive on time. They arrived a day too late. And so it was just a timing thing. But I will have them at whatever other events that I'm going to in the future. So if people are listening and they're like, oh, I know she's going to be at this event, I will have my books. I promise.
Yay. And now what are the books about?
As I mentioned, I'm all about, screenwriting in the film industry. And so I actually talk about storytelling techniques, but then I flip it and say, okay, so God as your author, he's actually using these techniques in your life. And so, yeah, it's a really unique look at how to have a relationship with God because you're looking at God as your author, which is actually a really interesting way of looking at God because, most of the time we look at God like father and king. But then
Mhm.
when we think of him as our author, it's like, oh yeah, I can see that, sure. But what does that mean? How does an author think? How does an author strategize their characters' journeys? And so that's what the whole book is about.
That's super cool.
Thank
That's
you.
that's really cool. It kind of bleeds into the title of today's devotion, which is Be a Boomerang Friend. And so one of the things that I was thinking about was, when you throw out a boomerang into the sky or whatever, it'll return back to you. And the reason why I called it Be a Boomerang Friend is being a friend who sees value in what somebody else is doing, so where that they offer resources or offer connections or offer their expertise to help bring that vision to life. And so in my mind, how that's a boomerang is basically you're taking what you have in your hand, the resources and the connections that you have in your hand, and you're throwing it out there, but yet you're giving it back. It's basically a way to give back, and those blessings will come back in some other way. And so I kind of likened it to a boomerang, and that we are giving and helping, and it will return in some way, shape, or form. If that makes any sense.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And especially, when you have the right attitude when you're giving, then it's like when God sends blessings our way, when we are able to take those blessings and then bless others, it's like God sees like, okay, then I have this conduit to work with. I can bless this person a lot because they're going to then take it and be a blessing to others. And so, all the stuff I was sharing with you was stuff that I had learned. And so, why would I keep that to myself? So, I'm learning all of this stuff. And I think a lot of why God is giving me opportunity to learn this stuff is to share it with other people. And so, yeah, I think that the more that we share our resources and our skills and our knowledge and stuff like that, I think the more that God is able to recognize that He can trust us with those it's like the talents, right? He can trust us with those resources knowing that we are going to put it out there and be a blessing, not just receive the blessing.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. It feels like a boomerang, in my
Yeah.
opinion. You're giving, you're receiving, you're giving again, you're receiving again. It just keeps going and going and going. Is there anything else that you want to share about what you do so that the listeners can learn more about you?
Sure, yeah. So I'll just say also, my book is called In the Beginning, Middle, and End, a screenwriter's observations of life, character, and God. And so I would encourage people to read that book. It's really going to challenge you in your walk with God. It'll probably very much complement everything that you're listening to in this podcast, because it will help to see God through a different facet, a different angle. Every time we learn a new angle of God, it's like it deepens that relationship and it makes it richer. And then when you take that richness of your relationship into learning more of the knowledge and all of the things that you're learning with Anita, that's where you can really grow, not just in your knowledge, but in your actual, like, your life, your walk. That's where learning how to actually be that blessing and to trust that God is moving in your life and in the lives around you. And the thing about the boomerang is that when it comes back, it may come back in an entirely different way than when you sent it out, like you might not get it back from the same person that you sent that out to. In fact, most likely you won't. And same with, like, if you think about a boomerang, when they throw it, they might throw it one way, but it comes back around from a completely different angle. And so this is where we need to trust God. Same with when we're sowing seeds. Like, it's not up to us to decide, like, okay, I think this ground is worthy of seed. No, it's our job to plant the seed. That's up to God, what he does with the seed after that. And it's the same with that boomerang of blessings, like, where it's our job to throw it out there and let God direct its path, and he'll bring that other blessing back to us in his way as he sees fit, in his timing and all of that.
That is so good. It is our job to plant the seeds and let God move the seeds in whatever direction he wants. Yeah, I love that. So you've given your website. We're going to make sure that all of your contact information is in the description of both the podcast description as well as the YouTube video that we pop up. So definitely make sure that you check, if you're listening, the description here so that you can have Jaclyn's contact information for sure. Is there anything else you want to close out with about yourself or any other added information?
Is it okay if I just pray?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you so much for this friendship and for our listeners, and just this wonderful conversation about recognizing that we are to put blessing out there and to trust you with it, and know that it'll come back in a way that you choose. And Lord, I just pray that you would continue to bless this podcast, bless the listeners. And I just pray that there would be so much growth in the listeners' walk with you and in Anita's walk with you as she is obedient to your calling. And I just thank you so much for this opportunity that we have to share and grow together. You're wonderful, and we love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that prayer. Now I want to close out because, as always, every podcast ends with a challenge. And so today's challenge to dig deeper is I want everyone to pull out their notebook from yesterday and start making a list of all the people that you know who could potentially help you. And you might not even know the person yet, but pull out the notebook and write the list of those people as best as you can and include their skill set. So I just gave you somebody today that has an amazing amount of skill set. She might be on a lot of your lists. So don't discount the meetings that you have or those lunch appointments that you have. But then I want you to do something else. In your challenge, I want you to make 2 phone calls today to people on your list, just 2 phone calls. Tell them your big idea and tell them your needs or what you think you're needing, or have that lunch appointment or whatever. Just tell them and ask them for help. Hopefully they're a boomerang friend and they just give it, right? But keep your ears open today for an opportunity to give back, so you be a boomerang friend too. And then tonight, when you reflect on all of this, pull out your journal, or pull out your companion journal of the Rinse, Reflect, Repeat devotional and answer the questions of what happened. Did something amazing occur in your phone calls today? Were you encouraged at how God worked through your conversations? Did you meet somebody like Jaclyn, or did you have a conversation like I did that got me here? What happened? Write that down in your journal. Make sure that you date it, because your goals are achievable, and then continue to include any steps that you need to make in order to meet other people, whether that's connections or social media connections or whatever. And answer the question, were you also a boomerang friend? Until tomorrow, keep rinsing, reflecting, and repeating. God bless you. And thank you, Jaclyn, for coming today.